have steampunk art for fantasy world. You just have to kind of makeshift for a lot of things. And so what I'll generally kind of do is I'll use like a gear from the fantasy battle map style, and you kind of just pick the gear of your choice. And there's that trick that I like to use of foreshortening. And remember, when you do your foreshortening for a stamp, it has to be at 0 degrees first. And that way these hotbars show up. Watch what happens when I move it just 0.5 degrees. Those hotbars go away. So just know that. And then also, if it's too small, the hotbars might also not show up, just to let you know. So you have to scale it up a little bit. So I'm going to do foreshortening by grabbing the hotbar. I'm just going like this. And I'm going to create the base for like a floating, some kind of floating city that's going to be on top of this gear right here. So then I'm going to go back to Fantasy World. Like this, we'll open this up, and then I can kind of choose a stamp that I want to put on top of the gear. I think there is a good circular, like, fortress town that's around here somewhere. I'll see if I can find that in here. It's like a fortified city. Let's see if I can find that. I think that might work really well. The dwarven stamps might also work really well, like this one right here. It kind of makes sense. Dwarves kind of fit into the category of steampunk a little bit, so you could always do that as well. Like just place that right there on top of the gear itself. Then you kind of have this gear on top of it like that. We might want to consider desaturating it like that. You'll notice that the city itself, that city stamp, is kind of got a grayish kind of overtone to it, so I can kind of change this to a gray color. The black lines are kind of thick, so I'll bring the contrast down a little bit, and now that kind of matches a little better. And I think what I'll do is I need to change the foreshortening on this a little bit. And then one other thing I've kind of noticed about the city is that there's nothing underneath that cog, so I might want to consider putting something underneath that as well. I could just use this. You could just easily just use this thing right here, this compass. I can just desaturate it. I can bring the brightness up a little bit, bring the contrast down, and then do that foreshortening trick. I'll just put it down a layer like this, and I just want to put it underneath so that way it's kind of hiding what's underneath there. So that I have that. So that works kind of well. So I have that, and then I might want to consider adding some more gears and stuff to it. So I'll go ahead and select this gear right here. And one thing I might want to consider doing is taking another gear like this, as you would kind of expect how gears work. They connect to each other with gears. And let's put it like another one, maybe, let's put it in the back behind it. Like this. And I'll stick with my dwarven theme. So maybe I want to put some kind of dwarven structure on top of that gear. Like this. Let's see here. This right here works kind of well. I like that one. We could use a tower. Let's place that there so at least I have it available to me. And then maybe even towers are not always a bad thing to kind of put on there. So what's the scale of this stamp, just to make sure that I have continuity? 129. About there. And then I can place this one tower just right on top of that gear. And then I can put this structure right on top of that gear. Like that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down more layers. And I want to show maybe there's layers of gears. So I'll bring the brightness down a little bit. Oopsie, my mistake. Let me grab that gear there. Bring the brightness down. And I'm going to kind of create this illusion that there are kind of gears underneath of it. So I'll go over here. We'll put one gear like that. And then we'll put maybe another one right there. Oopsie, I have a shadow on. Let's turn that off. There we go. Put one there. Let's put another one right there. And let's put maybe a small one. Let's go with a small one in the back, right about there. Oopsie, let's push this up one layer. There we go. That looks a little better. There we go. And then you kind of see that there's some gears kind of underneath of it. I don't really care for that being there. And I'll maybe move that over to there. Let's move that gear. Let's move this one as well. I think that might look better. Not sure. Yeah, there we go. It kind of looks like the gears are kind of coming out of the ground there. All right, there we go. And then, of course, as always, you want to use a shadow of some kind. So I'll just copy and paste and steal this shadow here. Just paste it there to show that it's kind of closer to the ground. I'll make the shadow a little bigger. There you go. And it's a steampunk city instead of a tower. So I'll have to change the name to steampunk city. But you get the general idea on kind of how I put it together, right? And then, of course, if you're going to have steampunk, you're going to expect a lot of steam, right? So we probably want to take smoke like this. In fact, this one right here might work better because it's got some of the stuff already in it. And then I'll go ahead and place this all the way up. And we'll place a couple of these smoke kind of coming out of here. And then we'll obviously take a couple of these as well. And then I'll probably place them around the gears itself like this. Let's put one also in the background behind like this. There we go. So I got one in the background like that. And then let's have one kind of coming up like, let's say, I already got that one in use. Let's say this one right here. There we go. In the back like that. There we go. So you kind of have this nice steampunk city or tower. It could be a tower. If you want it to be a tower, we could take this and kind of stack multiple of these together to kind of get the tower effect. So we'll go here. I'll copy and paste that. Do it again. Copy and paste. Do it again. And then I can get that tower kind of effect that I was kind of going for there. And then, of course, you could add something on top of the tower. It could be a statue. It could be like a ball or some kind. One thing that you could do that I really like is you can use, let me see, is there any heraldry? I want to try to stick with as much of the fantasy world as possible. I know I deviate off to different stuff, but don't want to do it too much. You could put like a crystal right here at the top. And this kind of crystal helps to kind of power much of the city there. There we go. So now we still got a tower going on there. And I always like to add like a light source or something. So we'll go ahead and choose a light source. Let's see here. Oh, there was a spell. Let's just use one of those. I don't think I like that. Let's go back. Spell. I'm going to go outside of the style again. I see battle maps. Let's use maybe this one right here. And then just kind of put that on top. That way there's kind of like some kind of glow going on there. Let's change the blend mode to maybe screen. And I'll bring the size down. I think that looks good there. There we go. And we'll call it Steampunk Tower. Create group. All right. Easy stuff. City built inside a skeleton. Love that idea. Okay, so we got the Steampunk Tower. I'm going to go ahead and lock that. I no longer need to... And we're at 64 changes, so I'll quickly save. And then we'll work on the next one. An invasion portal. Cool. Cracked terrain with magic. Oh, I love that. City built inside a skeleton. Whew, that's going to be a tough one.